and through his family, Paul Ryan understands firsthand how important it is to stand up and face the most daunting economic challenges our country has ever faced if we are going to be able to hand our children, grandchildren, a country worth living in. A member of the House Ways and Means Committee and as chairman of the House Budget Committee, Paul Ryan has stood steadfast in his charge to take on the greatest fiscal and economic challenges of our time. The principal author of A Roadmap for America's Future and the Path to Prosperity, Paul Ryan is intent on getting America's fiscal house in order. From reforming Medicare and Social Security to cutting spending and reducing the deficit, Paul Ryan has never been afraid to stand toe-to-toe with the people who disagree and make the tough choices that we need to make before it is too late. I have proudly served in the House of Representatives for over a year with Paul Ryan, and I'm proud to call him a colleague and a friend. And I'm proud to have voted for both his common sense budgets that turn the ship around and get America off the fiscal cliff. Friends, please give a hearty Texas welcome to Congressman Paul Ryan.
Because you love your freedom. You think it's so well. I remember reading a few years ago a story about how Coca-Cola did this big, exhausting marketing study about how people love their states. First place, Texas. Second place, Wisconsin. We like a lot of the same things. We like to hunt. We like to fish. Half the year we fish on ice. You don't have that part of our tradition. We like our football and we like our freedom. Go Packers. Right, okay, that looks good. You know, as a big Packer fan, I grew up idolizing all those Green Bay Packers, but there was one guy that I idolized. I had his jersey, and his name was Earl Campbell. Man, that guy could play football. Okay, I hear some Cowboy fans over here. You know, I also represent Burlington, Wisconsin. Burlington, Wisconsin is the home of Tony Romo. And we're really proud of Tony Romo and what he's done. You see, I come here quite a bit. I was here just 2 weeks ago for my cousin's wedding in Austin. My wife grew up in Madill, Oklahoma, about a 2-hour drive from here, right on Lake Texoma. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to get my kids out of bed at 5 a.m. We're going to go out on Texoma, and we're going to hit the striper bass because they're biting today. And in the afternoon, I'm going to go out with some of my Okie friends, and I'm going to do something that I've been doing for a number of years, and that's called noodle and catfish. And I want to say something to you Texans. Because you understand freedom, you now legally recognize a man's right to catch a catfish with his own bare hands. I'm going to the south side of You really do love your freedom. Friends, we have a big decision to make. We're coming to a crossroads. We have a choice of two futures to make in this country. This is no ordinary time. It's no ordinary election. The very nature and identity of our nation is at stake. It's basically the American idea versus the welfare state. A country in debt, in doubt, in decline. It's the idea of our natural rights. Our rights, by the way, they don't come from government, they come from God and nature. That idea versus this notion of government-granted rights. It's the idea of equal opportunity versus equal outcomes. Free enterprise versus crony capitalism. The rule of law versus the rule of men. Or fiat government, where we delegate our power to elites in Washington, to technocrats, to manipulate our currency, to manipulate our regulations, our taxes, with this fatal conceit that somehow they know so much better than we do on how to run our own lives. We need to understand the stakes of this election. And to really understand it, let's just quickly review the math, the momentum, and the man that's bringing this about. Look at the math. Look at our economy. 23 million people, 23 million Americans are either out of work and looking for a job, working at a part-time job because it's all they can find, or they just gave up looking for work. If the amount of Americans were in the workforce today like they were when President Obama took office, the labor force participation rate, our unemployment rate would be 11% today. Phil Graham just wrote the other day in the Wall Street Journal. Good man. If we matched job creation rate then, after Ronald Reagan took over, with today, we would have had 15 million more jobs today if we had those policies in place. Consider the math of our debt. You know what they just told us in Washington the other day? The Congressional Budget Office, the agency in charge of seeing how big our debt is, or where our economy is going. We got a debt crisis coming. We have had politicians from both political parties making empty promises to voters that are soon going to become broken promises. If you want to view a picture of what that looks like, turn on your television and look at Europe. That's what happens when governments keep making empty promises, when governments keep borrowing from future generations. In just 2025, 3 government programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, plus our interest, will consume 100% of all federal dollars coming in revenues, all tasks, 3 programs and interest. They tell us that by the 2030s, they can't even measure the economy going forward because they don't think it can continue because of this burden of debt that our government is racking up. And so, coming into this situation, seeing what's going on in our country, seeing what's happening in Europe, what is President Obama doing? No, he's not doing nothing, he's making it worse. He gave us 4 budgets of $4 trillion deficits. He's chosen to do nothing to fix this problem, bringing us closer toward the precipice of a debt crisis. What about the Senate? 3 years, no budget. We got this crazy idea in a law called the Budget Act. It says, you know what? Congress is supposed to pass a budget every year. Go figure. They have it. And so, we go toward this debt crisis, where we know without a shadow of a doubt, we are severing that great American legacy of leaving the next generation better off. This is the future we know we have in front of us. So we have this tipping point of debt that's on the horizon. And that's easy to measure. What is a little harder to measure is what I would consider a moral tipping point. Friends, we're coming to a time in this country where a majority of our citizens can consider themselves as takers versus makers in society. Where more and more people are becoming dependent upon the American government for their livelihood than upon themselves. That's not the opportunity society that our founders created. You know what they tell us? They tell us that 20% of Americans get 70% of their livelihood from the federal government, so they're already dependent. Another 20% of Americans get 40% of their livelihood from the federal government, so they're reliant. A full 70% of Americans get more benefits from the federal government in dollar value than they pay back in taxes. 49% of Americans don't even pay income taxes today. 46 million Americans are on food stamps today. We're coming to a point where we will have taken our safety net, which was designed to help people who truly cannot help themselves, to help people who are temporarily down on their luck get back on their feet, and we're turning it into a hammock that lulls able-bodied people into lives of complacency and dependency. That drains them of their incentive and their will to make the most of their lives. So if you take a stagnant economy, if you take a situation where more and more people are giving up and becoming dependent, and if you take these policies that bring us to a debt crisis, what do you get? You get this choice of two futures we have in front of us. The American idea of an opportunity society versus the European idea of a cradle-to-grave social welfare state. We know better. But now let's review the man that is bringing this about. You see, President Obama cannot run on his record. It's a terrible record. And he's not changing his tune. This was no Bill Clinton presidency. This was not one of those issues where the Republicans took the House in 2010 and decided to moderate, to triangulate, to move in the middle. No, not this president. He doubled down in the direction he went when his party controlled Congress in his first 2 years, and he went hard left. So if he can't run on his record, and if he's not changing his tune, what does he have left? He's going to divide this country in order to distract this country to win votes. He can't run on reality, so he has to create what they call a narrative, a story. And he's going to speak to people as if we are stuck in our current station in life, victims of circumstances beyond our control, and that the government is here to help us cope with it. You know what? It's a vision that says, lower your gaze from the horizon that you see for yourself down to your feet and look at the petty things in life. It's a vision that exploits our anxieties. It's a vision of government that believes instead of natural rights, we now have government-granted rights. You want to take one little view of what this looks like? Just look at the new health care law. It's a law that says if this law conflicts with your religious freedom, with your own religious conscience, with the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, government wins. If he's willing to do things like this before his difficult election, imagine the kind of government we will get if he gets reelected and never has to face a voter ever again. It's a vision that believes more of our tax dollars, more borrowing and more spending need to go to Washington so they can decide how to spend it all. And what ends up happening at the end of the day is the rich, the powerful, the cronies, they're the ones who get the benefits and everybody else is left standing behind. Big business, big government join in a common cause to rig the rules and aim for equal outcomes. If there's one thing you hear me say here today, hear this. This will not be our destiny. Americans will never stand for this shrunken vision of our future. This is not who we are. The good news is, we're rejecting this idea. You know what? We had this little election in Wisconsin last Tuesday. My buddy, my governor, my friend, Scott Walker, took it on. He saw the problems. He campaigned on fixing the problems in our state government. We thought it was sort of common sense that people who work for the government should pay something for their health and retirement benefits like everybody else who pay the taxes to fund the government. Woo! And what Scott and those brave state legislators did is they did in office exactly what they said they would do when they campaigned for office. And the people rewarded him by returning him with a bigger vote margin than one he originally got elected with. You know, about this time last week, I was doing rallies around Racine County, an area I represent, kind of near Tony Romo's home, actually. And I heard 3 different people at 3 different times say, we're going to be the Texas of the Midwest in Wisconsin.
This is Congressman Paul Ryan. He did vote for the NDAA.
We're going to reassert freedom, free enterprise. We believe in liberty, self-determination, and government by consent of the governed. The government works for us, not the other way around, and we reasserted that on Tuesday last week in Wisconsin.
What are you doing? Definitely detain American citizens without charge of trial.
So why are people rejecting this path? I'll tell you why. Because we know that if we replace the American Opportunity Society with President Obama's government-centered society, we will abandon the blessings of liberty that our founders established and that our veterans secured. We're not going to let that happen because we know that the American system of liberty and free enterprise has done more to help the poor, more to increase social and economic mobility, and more to prize earned success than any other form of government ever created in the history of this planet. Look, it is rare in American politics to arrive at a moment in our history where the next election will determine the fundamental nature of American democracy and of the social contract. That is exactly where we are today. This one means everything. The president is pursuing a vision of a government-centered society where our rights don't come from nature and God, they come from government. It's a society that ends up with a debt crisis, with more dependency. It's a society where we do not create our own opportunity for ourselves. You know, out there on that horizon, beyond the discord and the distractions, is a better day where we can still see the life that we think of for ourselves and for our children. All we have to do to get back to putting ourselves on that horizon is to simply reapply those principles that made us great in the first place. It is not too late. It is not too late to reignite the American Renaissance, to renew this country. If we take those core principles, liberty, freedom, free enterprise, government by consent of the governed, if we create the space to get our government back, we will turn that American idea back on. And what is great is Americans know this. Texans, you get it. And Wisconsinites last Tuesday just reaffirmed this. This means we leave it all on the field. This means we do everything to get our country back. This is it. And you know what's going to happen? On Wednesday morning, November the 7th, we're going to wake up and we're going to look back and we're going to know this is the first day where we get our country back on track.